For nearly 500,000 years, a massive celestial body known as Nibiru is said to approach Earth's orbit every 3,600 years. The ancient Sumerians believed Nibiru is the home planet of the Anunnaki. Due to its immense size and gravitational pull, Nibiru causes significant disruptions in Earth's stability, potentially leading to earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and shifts in ocean tides. This gravitational interaction affects not only Earth but also other planets in the solar system, creating widespread turbulence. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, May 15, 2049, when the world first witnessed the tremors of what was to come. The Atlan volcanic field saw its first significant volcanic explosion, a precursor to the chaotic symphony of destruction that would soon engulf the Earth. Over the next 2 months, every continent was gripped by widespread panic. The responses to the unfolding catastrophe varied drastically, shaped by cultural attitudes, available resources, and the sheer scale of the disasters. In bustling cities, streets were transformed into chaotic scenes of gridlocked traffic as residents fled to what they hoped would be safer areas. Supermarkets were stripped bare within hours, leaving empty shelves as people stockpiled supplies in a desperate bid for survival. In rural areas, the reactions were more measured but no less profound. Communities banded together, pooling resources and relying on collective knowledge to weather the disasters. In some cases, older generations who had lived through previous hardships became invaluable sources of guidance, teaching younger members how to adapt to the sudden and extreme changes. Governments scrambled to respond, but the sheer scale of the crises overwhelmed even the most prepared nations. Emergency broadcasts filled the airwaves, urging people to seek shelter and remain calm, though such advice often fell on deaf ears. In areas hit hardest by volcanic eruptions, families huddled together in makeshift shelters, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. Social media became both a lifeline and a source of misinformation, as people shared everything from evacuation routes to unverified rumors about the causes of the calamities. Faith and spirituality also played a significant role in how people coped. Religious institutions opened their doors to provide shelter and solace, with many interpreting the events as divine retribution or a test of humanity's resilience. Meanwhile, scientists and experts worked tirelessly to understand the phenomena, though their efforts often led to more questions than answers. The world was united in its vulnerability, and the human spirit was tested as never before. Volcanoes erupted across 20 nations, showering the world with ash and fire. In Canada, Hoodoo Mountain erupted with molten fury, transforming the serene wilderness into a vision of the apocalypse. The deafening roars of the volcano were matched by the fiery rivers of lava carving through forests, obliterating everything in their path. Garibaldi Lake, once a haven of tranquil beauty, became a boiling inferno, its surface obscured by thick clouds of scalding steam. Edziza, a giant long regarded as dormant, awakened with catastrophic force, its violent explosions sending shockwaves that reverberated for miles, collapsing fragile infrastructure and forcing entire communities to flee in terror. In the United States, Mount St. Helens reawakened with a vengeance, its eruption rivaling and surpassing the infamous event of 1980. Ash clouds blotted out the sun, plunging the surrounding areas into an ashen twilight, while rivers overflowed with debris, devastating nearby towns. Mount Redoubt's fiery blasts painted the Alaskan skies with hues of orange and red, a warning beacon visible for hundreds of miles as its pyroclastic flows incinerated everything in their path. Mount Rainier, an ominous presence near Seattle, unleashed its pent-up fury, triggering massive lahars that cascaded down its slopes, swallowing villages and cutting off escape routes. Meanwhile, Mount Shasta's thunderous explosions sent shockwaves through Northern California, flattening structures and blanketing the region in a suffocating layer of ash. These once majestic peaks became harbingers of destruction, each eruption amplifying the collective fear and chaos engulfing the continent. Popocatépetl erupted in Mexico with an intensity that shook the very core of the surrounding region. The ash it spewed turned skies dark over Puebla and Mexico City, forcing millions indoors as earthquakes rippled outward. In Guatemala, the landscape was scarred by the ferocity of its volcanoes, displacing entire villages and burying fertile lands beneath layers of ash. Ethiopia saw fissures open in its Great Rift Valley, belching smoke and fire, as communities struggled to make sense of the devastation. Japan's smaller, lesser-known volcanoes erupted in a chain reaction, blanketing the islands in ash and prompting mass evacuations, while Indonesia faced simultaneous eruptions across its archipelago, transforming thriving islands into unrecognizable wastelands. In the Philippines, the sky turned an ominous red as lava rivers cut through densely populated areas, prompting a massive international relief effort. Chile's volcanic belt came alive, with plumes of ash choking the Andes and disrupting life across the continent. In Kenya, dormant volcanoes awakened, reshaping the terrain and upending lives, while El Salvador grappled with pyroclastic flows that razed entire communities. New Zealand's geologically active zones exploded with violent energy, carving new landscapes into its picturesque terrain. Iceland, a land already shaped by fire and ice, endured an onslaught of eruptions that tested the resilience of its people, and Antarctica, a seemingly barren expanse, revealed its hidden volatility as volcanic activity melted ice shelves and sent steam rising into the frigid air. Each region bore the unique scars of the Earth's wrath, underscoring the planet's immense and indiscriminate power. The devastation did not stop there. As if orchestrated by a malevolent force, these eruptions were accompanied by relentless tremors and seismic activities that fractured the Earth's crust. Roads split open, buildings crumbled, and communities were left isolated and helpless. It was as though the planet itself was rebelling against the excesses and follies of humanity. News broadcasts were filled with scenes of chaos and despair, showing families torn apart and entire regions rendered uninhabitable. Every person alive was confused and unable to comprehend what was happening to their beloved planet. The year 2049 became synonymous with disaster. The Earth did not merely quake, it howled with fury. It was as if the planet itself had become a beast, awakening from centuries of slumber, intent on reclaiming dominance over its inhabitants. In Canada, the serene beauty of the wilderness was annihilated in a single, merciless moment. Hoodoo Mountain erupted with an explosion that cracked the air like thunder, sending molten rivers cascading through forests, incinerating everything in their path. The night sky glowed a menacing crimson, visible from towns hundreds of miles away. Garibaldi Lake, once a sanctuary of tranquility, became an apocalyptic spectacle. Its azure waters hissed and boiled, transforming into a swirling cauldron of steam and ash. The vapor rose in thick, choking plumes, blotting out the sun and plunging the region into a perpetual twilight. Edziza joined the chaos, its eruptions unleashing shockwaves that echoed across the Pacific, causing tsunamis that swallowed coastal villages whole. In the United States, the nightmare was no less severe. Mount St. Helens erupted with a force that dwarfed its infamous 1980 explosion. Entire forests were flattened in seconds as pyroclastic flows surged with terrifying speed, obliterating anything in their path. Cities hundreds of miles away were blanketed in a suffocating layer of ash, turning midday into an eerie, pitch-black night. People stumbled blindly through the streets, their lungs searing with each breath of the acrid air. Mount Redoubt's explosive activity sent shockwaves through the aviation industry as its ash plume climbed into the stratosphere, grounding flights and leaving thousands stranded. Mount Rainier, a giant that had slept for centuries under the watchful gaze of Seattle, unleashed its wrath in a series of violent eruptions. Lahars, rivers of mud and debris, roared down its slopes, swallowing towns in an instant, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. Meanwhile, Mount Shasta's awakening sent tremors rippling through California, its fiery breath visible for miles. Highways split like fragile threads, and bridges collapsed into rivers now choked with volcanic debris. The ground itself seemed to rebel, heaving and cracking under the strain of relentless seismic activity. As volcanic ash descended from the skies, it muffled the world in an unnatural silence. Towns and cities were blanketed in a thick, gray shroud that absorbed all sound, turning bustling urban centers into ghostly wastelands. The air became a poison, thick and unbreathable, forcing people to retreat into their homes or don makeshift masks in a futile attempt to protect themselves. Wildlife fled in a frantic exodus, their natural habitats obliterated or rendered uninhabitable. Birds fell from the sky, their lungs clogged with ash, while larger animals stumbled blindly through forests ablaze. The panic was palpable, spreading like wildfire through communities as they scrambled to evacuate. Emergency services, overwhelmed and underprepared, collapsed under the sheer magnitude of the catastrophe. Hospitals overflowed with the injured and the dying, their halls echoing with cries of desperation. Food and water supplies dwindled as transportation networks disintegrated, leaving countless families to fend for themselves amidst the chaos. The usual order of society crumbled. Looting and violence erupted as fear turned to madness. People clung to their loved ones, their faith, and whatever semblance of hope they could muster, but for many, it was not enough. The relentless onslaught of natural disasters left a deep scar on the collective psyche of humanity. It became clear that this was not merely an era of disaster but a reckoning, a brutal reminder of the fragile balance between humanity and the earth.